Wanda with Jimmy Branch Homestead, and today I am going to make and can some homemade spaghetti sauce with meat. So I have 3 pounds of burger. I am going to go ahead and get that fried up. So let me open the containers and get that in the pan. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to fry up the 3 pounds of burger. I do slightly pepper it. I don't want to pepper it quite as much as normal because in the canning process, it really makes that much stronger. So I can always add to it when I take the jar out to use it, but I don't want it to be so peppery I can't eat it. I'm not going to add hardly any salt, again for the same reasons, but also because some of the tomatoes I'll be using will be ones I canned last year. So for homemade spaghetti sauce that you're going to can, it's best to use a very lean meat. I am using venison, but you can use any type of ground meat that you choose. And you'll want to make sure that it's drained really well once it's cooked. Okay, so my hamburger is completely browned. I'm just going to go ahead and turn it off, and I will drain this and let it cool to put away in the refrigerator, since I'm not making the sauce today. It will all be part of this video, but it's dinner time, and I also in the middle of another big project, so this sauce will not be made until tomorrow. So it is the next day, and I am just washing up the tomatoes and getting them cut. I'm just kind of cutting them up in chunks, and then we'll get them into the roaster. So let me go ahead and get these, the rest of these cut up, and I'll meet you for the next steps. Okay, so I am done cutting up the tomatoes, and I will be dumping these in the roaster. And I am actually using all of the kinds of tomatoes that I have in my garden. So I have Jet Stars that are normally great fresh eating. I have the grape tomatoes for salads, and I have aromas and Amish paste. So everything I have, I didn't have enough of any one thing, and I decided to just throw them all together and put them in the roaster. Okay, so I have the tomatoes in the roaster. I'm just going to set it on about 300 degrees and let it go. I'm going to come back periodically and stir it up to make sure that nothing is sticking too bad to the bottom and that there is enough juice in there. Because I have other tomatoes besides the paste tomatoes and the Romas, there should be plenty of juice in there. But I will come back once it's cooked down more to kind of share with you the next steps. Okay, so the reason I wear a stained shirt, it's clean, but it is stained, is because tomato-based products can stain a lot. So I've learned my lesson. If I had a nice full roaster, I would have left the tomatoes in the roaster to use the immersion blender. But when it is just a little bit, when it's cooked down, it makes a mess and flies everywhere. So I learned that the hard way. Okay, so I put them in a 8-cup pitcher, what would fit and give me room to move. And then I'm just going to use the immersion blender, maybe. And again, I just left all the skins on and the seeds. It helps to make it a little thicker. This would make good tomato soup. Okay. nice and blended. And I'm going to dump that back in and then take the rest out. So if I was making tomato sauce, that's how I would do it. And then I would just can it from there. I do have, I'm pretty sure, a full video on making tomato sauce and canning it. That way you would have all the times and ingredients that you would need to put in it. There's a little burnt piece. I could have just diced the tomatoes when they were fresh and cooked them down that way for a thicker sauce. I am going to add diced, oh, I pushed it when it was too far out. Got it all over. That's what I mean. A couple of years ago I made about 30 something quarts of spaghetti sauce, and over the last few months we haven't really eaten it because we had one jar left, and we finished that off last week, I think it was. Okay, so as you can see, it's not real thick. Well, maybe you can't see. Let's kind of tip it down so you can. There we go. That's better. Like I said, it would be great for tomato soup at this point, but that's not what I'm making today. So I'm actually adding a couple of cans of tomato paste. That helps to thicken it up a lot. And I don't make my own homemade tomato paste. It just takes way too many tomatoes for it. Plus forever to cook down. So that's one of the things I've just opted to purchase. I mean, I could if I had to, but I don't usually have enough tomato plants to warrant that. Okay, can 2. And I'm just going to use that immersion blender again, and be careful because it will splash out, to kind of mix this in. Yeah, it is trying to splash. I'm going to go ahead and plug the roaster back in. Give this a good stir. And that thickened it up quite a bit. But I want to make more spaghetti sauce than this, so I am going to get some items off my pantry shelf, some more tomatoes, and get those mixed in. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so I have 10 pints of diced tomatoes that I canned 2 years ago, and I'm just going to drain the juice off of these because I don't want my spaghetti sauce too watered down. Oops. The tomatoes out. It's not going to get all the juice out, but it will get a lot of it out. And there was no water added to these. I did slip the skins on these before I diced them. So there is no skins in this. So I'm just going to finish draining these and get them into the pan. Okay, so I added 10 pints of diced tomatoes. If you didn't home can or you didn't have enough of them, of course you can use purchased tomatoes and tomato sauce to make this. Or if you get a really good buy in those great big gallon cans, that would be perfect for helping you to make this spaghetti sauce at home. Okay, so I just got those stirred in. It's pretty nice and thick. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and add the hamburger that I cooked yesterday. And if you will recall, I had 3 pounds of venison burger, so it's pretty lean. Let's see if I can get it to come out of here without being a big clump. That's all right, we'll stir it up. Starting to look a little bit more like spaghetti sauce. And again, you can make as big or as little a batch as you want. I would love to have this roaster completely full, but I didn't take out enough burger to do that. And it does take 90 minutes to process this in a pressure canner because of the meat in the spaghetti sauce. Oh, that's starting to look really good. Hope you can see that. Lots of meat in it. So we do like a lot of meat in our spaghetti sauce. So I'm not going to add more tomatoes or tomato sauce. I do have this on 300 to get it hot because we are going to hot pack everything today. And at this point, I will get ready to add the spices. Let me get those out and I'll be right back with you. Okay, so I am going to start with, oops, those never turn off, 1 cup of minced onion. If you have fresh onion, of course, by all means use that. I don't, so I'm going to go ahead and use this. This will also thicken up my sauce, so since it is dry, you know, if I have to, I can add another thing of tomato sauce. I would not add water to water it down. You can, but I would rather use tomato sauce if I need to thin it out a little. And next, I'm going to add basil. Now, I love basil, so I add a lot to mine. If you don't, or you don't like it at all, you can omit it. You're gonna season this to your taste, not mine. Now I will caution on the salt and the onion powder and those kind of things. Keep in mind that when you can something, it really empowers those flavors, those spices. So it's better to add some when you're using it rather than have it, like for instance, over salted. We don't want to over salt this. So I am just going to add, probably a couple of tablespoons. And keep in mind, I did add salt when I canned my diced tomatoes. I always add a half a teaspoon per pint, and I put 10 pints in here. Now by the time I drained off all the juice, there was probably only a half a pint of tomatoes in each one. So that kind of made it like 5 pints of diced tomatoes without the juice that I put in here. And I'm going to cook this down, stir it, taste it every so often, and add as needed rather than do too much. So I'm going to do a rounded tablespoon of garlic powder. And a rounded tablespoon of onion powder. And this again is for half of a roaster. This is an 18-quart roaster. I do have a larger one, but I knew I didn't have that many tomatoes from the garden. And I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of pepper. And I have found that pepper is one of those that really, when you can it, comes out. So I don't want to over pepper this, even though I probably have 9 quarts in here. Okay. Now I'm going to give that a good stir. Again, it's nice and thick. Starting to smell like spaghetti sauce. And look at too. Okay, I'm going to add more basil. You may not want to. Again, I really like a lot of basil in my spaghetti sauce, so if you don't add it. Okay, I am going to let that just kind of cook. And while that is cooking, I'm going to go ahead and get my canners and jars out. Okay, it started simmering, but it's not hot all the way through. So I went ahead and stirred it up real good. We'll continue heating this. I have my jars in the oven at 200 degrees so that they will be hot. We're going to hot pack everything today, and then it will go into a boiling water in the canner. So I did taste it. It's kind of flat, so I need to add another tablespoon each of the onion and the garlic powder and salt. Excuse me, I'm going to do another rounded tablespoon. Can't remember what I just said. And then I will continue to simmer this, and then I'll try it again. Again, your taste may be different than mine. And I didn't want to over salt since I had already salted those pints of tomatoes I canned. I went ahead and did 2 tablespoons. Okay, we're going to mix that up real good. Continue to let this simmer, and then we will try it again. I think I'm going to probably add a little more basil because I really didn't taste it. I don't see a lot in here, even though I put, probably a 1/4 cup in here. So I'll just do that off camera. But it is basil that I grew and freeze-dried myself. Okay, we'll be back shortly. Okay, so I have let my sauce cook down for a couple of hours. And it is quite thick. I did add several jars of tomato sauce, home canned tomato sauce. To thin it out a little bit. We like very thick spaghetti sauce, but it has to be thin enough that it can boil in the jars in the canner. So I have thinned that out, and I need to get my funnel. I forgot it. Okay, so I have taken a couple of jars out of the oven. I mentioned to you earlier that I had them in the oven at about 200 degrees. Looks like I actually have it on 215, but 200 would be ample. Just going to move it a little closer so I don't slop so much. And I have the canner on with 1.5 gallons of water, which is the depth that is required for this canner. So you would need to check and read your pamphlet on your canner to see what depth you need to have that. And once I figured out the inches, I was able to figure out how many 2-quart pitchers I had to fill in there. I also added 4 large cans of sliced mushrooms into my sauce. It's been simmering for about 4 hours. Now when I'm filling the jars, I only want to fill them up to the shoulder of the jar. Technically it's 1 inch, but I find that they seal better if I only do it to the shoulder. So I'm going to kind of bring you around where you can see. Here's the shoulder. So I'm really doing it more like 1.5 inches from the top. This will be in the pressure canner for 90 minutes once it reaches pressure. So I want to make sure there's lots of room for that to boil. And with thicker substances such as spaghetti sauce, I just find that it works better if you don't fill the jars as full. And this is just a paper towel with vinegar to wipe the top. Make sure I got any sauce, which there was just a little bit on it. And then I'm going to put a lid on. And I'm using the Superb canning lids. And I get these from Azure Standard, but you can get them from other places. And I'm going to put all of these jars, fill them first, and then I'll load them into the canner. Doesn't want to start. All right, come on, Ring. And again, I'm tightening these to just finger tight. And I'm just taking the jars out a couple at a time to make sure they stay hot, and so I don't have so many hot jars in my way. I don't want to burn myself. And I'll grab a couple more jars out of the oven. Several of these jars that I have are also from Azure Standard. And I really like their jars, and I'm buying mainly them from now on because they're 30% thicker than all their competitors. And I've had super good luck with them. Oops. I'm going to go ahead and get these jars filled, and then I'll be right back with you. Oh, I forgot to mention, I did put a small amount of citric acid in my spaghetti sauce, but I did not put 1/4 teaspoon per pint or 1/2 teaspoon per quart, because all of the tomato-based products that I had previously made and the canned stuff all had this stuff already in it. So I did not add it to each jar. Okay, so I got, let's see, 4, 7, 9 quarts. It would have been 10, but I couldn't find another quart jar clean. So I got 1.5 pints and a pint. So that's a good start towards what I need to get on my shelf for this year. I will need to make it a couple more times as my other tomatoes get ripe, but it's a good start. So next I need to get these into the canner. My water is boiling. And we want to put the jars in where they are not touching the sides and they are not touching each other. Now, one of the things I like about this canner is it's stackable, meaning I put in a separator. And I'm supposed to be able to add the rest of the jars. So, just over here. Let's see. And then I need to get the lid on. So a little more. So on the All-American canner, it has little arrows here that I needed to match up, which I did. And then we bring the little fasteners up from the sides. Shoot. I need to make sure this has got to come this way a little bit. It's too high on this side. This is the hardest part of this, is making sure it's got the even distance all the way around. Oops. That looks pretty even. Just here. Okay. Okay, looks pretty good. Okay, then again, opposites, we go ahead and tighten it down. Okay. So now I need to wait for it to vent, and when it does so, I'll bring you back. So if you're new to canning, you can see what I mean by venting it, and we will vent for 10 minutes. Okay, I'm not sure if it's showing up good on camera or not, but it is venting very well now. So what I need to do is set the timer for 10 minute. Okay, so my timer just went off. So this is my little pressure weight, and it has 3 different poundages on it. Here's a 5 pound, a 10 pound, and a 15 pound. Based on my altitude, I'm going to use the 10 pound. And that is because we are less than 1,000 feet above sea level. So now I just need to wait for the weight to start jiggling, and it will do that as it comes up to pressure. So I have a gauge over here, and it usually runs about 11 pounds of pressure. That's kind of the way the pressure canners are set up, to maintain at least 10 pounds of pressure. So once that starts jiggling, we'll come back and share the next step. Okay, so it has reached 11 pounds and the jiggler has started jiggling, or the weight. So at this point, I'm going to set the timer for 90 minutes. And that is the amount of time required for meat or anything with meat in it. So I'll check back later. Okay, my hour and a half is up. So at this point, I'm just going to turn the burner off and let it cool down slowly and naturally. Now, the American canner is a very heavy canner, so it's going to take quite a while to cool down. Like I said, the burner is off. It's still going to take a long time. So I'll be back when it's cooled down and I take the jars out. Well, I took the spaghetti sauce out of the canner very late last night, by the time it cooled down enough for me to remove them. And I'm happy to say that they all sealed and I didn't have any seepage. So again, the trick is really just filling them to the shoulder instead of all the way up to the rim when you're doing stuff that's like this. So I'm very excited to be putting these quick and easy meals back on my shelf. And as I mentioned, I will have to do probably 2 more batches this summer to be prepared for the next year to year and a half. So if you're enjoying this type of video, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and share our videos on your social media. It's the best way you can help our channel to grow. Thank you so much for watching. Jimmy Branch Homestead. Take care and God bless.